This video is about affecting change. I don't know how many times in my career I've run into a soldier, normally at the last stage of his career in the military when he's being released for discipline issues. And you know what, normally at that stage, that's when he finally gets the message that his inappropriate behavior will not be accepted by the CF. And you know, I've even run into some of these young people, these young men and women outside the military, and when they come up to me, they tell me they really regret some of the decisions that they made early on in their career that led to the release from the CF. You know, our soldiers are our greatest resource, and I hope it never happens again that a young man or woman says, "I didn't think this would happen to me."
The first incident took place in CFB Wainwright, Alberta. We were on a training exercise, and it was off hours. Myself and the guys from my unit were drinking at a bar. Upon returning, we were pulled over by the MPs, and we were belligerent to the MP. He released us with no incident, no charges, but the unit deemed it fit to charge myself and a few others for conduct unbecoming and drunkenness. With the conduct unbecoming and the drunkenness, I was issued a court warning as a final punishment.
C'était mon party de cours cette soirée-là. J'ai décidé de prendre mon char pour y aller. Hein. Mon char était dans le stationnement, je voulais pas le laisser là après le bar. Ça a fini que j'ai pogné mon char, je me suis fait arrêter sur la base. Après ça, ils m'ont emmené au poste de police. Ils m'ont fait souffler 2 fois, j'ai soufflé 2 fois.
I was at our friend's party, and I drank a lot there, and I was on my way home, and I was reaching into one of the bags to get some food out of it, and not noticing that I had veered onto the other side of the road, and that's, I guess, when the police started to follow me. So they had pulled me over right in front of my house, and then they smelled the liquor off my breath and gave me a breathalyzer, in which I blew 2.40, which is 3 times the legal amount of the drinking limit.
On est dans une société qui est tolérante en ce qui concerne l'utilisation abusive de l'alcool et l'utilisation de drogues illicites. Les forces canadiennes recrutent à même cette population. Alors, les jeunes recrues qui arrivent à l'École des recrues à Saint-Jean se font donner des lectures sur les procédures, les politiques, les conséquences, et puis les gens écoutent, mais n'entendent pas le message qui est véhiculé à ce moment-là que les écarts de conduite ne seront pas tolérés dans les forces canadiennes.
We have some unique stressors in the military that other people don't have outside the military. Repeated tours, long tours. There's been a lot of soldiers injured. We have long periods of time away from the home. These are all aspects that do impact a soldier's life. And when they come home, sometimes things happen and it's exacerbated because of their experiences overseas, or because they're dealing with different things like depression or operational stress injury even sometimes, and they make the wrong choice and they get themselves in trouble.
I wanted to talk to my former spouse at the time. She wasn't interested in this. An argument broke out. She in fact struck me, and I pushed her away from me. So, I mean, that's assault right there. When I left the house, I made a few poor choices, that being grabbing a bottle of rye when I left, and I took my weapon and ammunition with me. The police were involved, and I was actually arrested.
The second incident, I was charged with a DUI, driving impaired. Under the Service Code of Discipline, my unit and the Canadian Forces placed me on counselling probation. The third incident happened in June 2008. Myself and 2 others were off duty again, driving home with a few drinks. The passenger grabbed the steering wheel and flipped my car in the ditch. Resulting in the accident, I was in a breach of my CMP from the previous incident in 2005. Thus resulting in my unit to take further actions and send my file to administrative review for Ottawa for a pending release.
Ça a mis un stop à ma carrière, un gros stop. Pendant 1 an, tu fais rien, ils m'ont mis à la cantine. Puis après, à la cantine, j'ai réfléchi, puis réfléchi.
It's kind of hard seeing other guys coming in and they're all doing their job, driving for courses and stuff like that, what they're supposed to be doing. And every time they ship it to the field, I'm stuck at the canteen serving pop and chips, which is kind of a downer whenever you think about it.
So any place we can put them that they're still employable is in the canteen as an operator. It's kind of a demoralizing position because they see all their buddies come through every day and everybody knows what they've done, but it still gives them employability and it gets them to get their life back into line again, either with addictions counseling or anything else they have to do.
They don't need a consult in order to reach the addictions program. What they can do is actually just pick up the phone themselves and make an appointment, which is great. So what we do is we see people who come in, whether it's through a self-referral because they feel like they've had a problem and they need to address it. It could be because they're getting, they're seeing another healthcare provider, whether it's a social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist, MO, who may refer them over to the program. Or what we're seeing is that the units will be sending people over for mandatory assessments because there's been some involvement or incidents that concern alcohol, drugs, or maybe financial problems because of the gambling.
I started to gamble a lot, and paycheck after paycheck after paycheck, and my bills are starting to get behind. And creditor would call the house stating when am I getting my next payment and all that, and I would lie to them, and that's to me that's the first sign of a compulsive gambler. You lie, and you lie to yourself.
After the third incident, I realized my conduct off duty was unacceptable, and I took measures to correct my deficiencies. I stopped drinking. I went to addictions counseling again, and sought out counseling and advice from the peers in my unit.
Some people really don't get it until they find themselves in trouble. They're either in trouble with the law, their workplace is ready to release them from the military, and then it's a bit of an eye-opener. They don't understand how they've gotten themselves into this position. We can't make people come forward. However, I think that it's really important that each one of us take a look around us and look at your buddies, look at your friends, and if you're noticing that something's going on, you need to tell your friend that, hey, maybe you need to go and get help. Very much it's our wives, spouses, partners, husbands, whatever, that will say, you're a different person, you need to go get help because otherwise this relationship is over. That has a tendency to be very much a motivator to go and get help.
I was working, I come home, she was waiting at the front door 7, and she goes, listen, I'm gonna give you an ultimatum, and there's no ties here. You can have the machines all you want. If you want the machines will be there, and I'll leave the house, I'll leave you, and you don't have to owe me money, you don't have to do anything. I'll just leave quietly. Or you can have me and go get help again, and this time do it for yourself.
It's hard to realize that it is a problem, I think, at the time, because it's fun to party and go out with your friends and do things you're not supposed to do, but it only takes one small incident to completely turn your life around. There's a lot of repercussions for one night of fun or one stupid thing that you can do.
We take care of the emotional and spiritual well-being of our soldiers and their families. And that includes a variety of different things, including obvious religious, provision of religious services. We also provide some basic counseling services. We meet soldiers where they're at in a lot of family and life situations, issues. I would like to encourage soldiers to recognize that it's not weak to acknowledge that you're struggling. It takes a lot of courage. I'm there as a resource for every soldier, and if it's not specifically a religious problem, that's okay, because at the very least I can perhaps direct them in an appropriate way to get resolution.
I thought I'd be put in a position where I'd have to be put in a lesser of a role of responsibility within my unit, and as I watched my peers continue. I never thought that I would be released. I thought that I was not so much myself, but I thought you would have multiple opportunities to correct your deficiencies, where really you just have one, technically.
What I was facing was loss of my career, loss of a 19-year pension, and 3-year jail term. What I received was 2 years probation, and I've carried on with I'm now in my 23rd year in the military.
With military, I was put on CMP for counseling probation for a period of 6 months and placed in the canteen until I get my license back, which will be in June. So for about almost 2 years now, it's been just in the canteen, just trying to get by and hoping for the best.
Quand tu passes en cours puis ils te disent « Ah, tu perds ton permis pour un an », puis l'amende qu'ils te donnent, c'est là que tu te dis « Pas fort, pas fort ».
The turning to alcohol that day probably wasn't a very wise choice. The arming myself that day was an even poorer choice. So the combination of two, you know, I should have removed myself from the situation to begin with. I mean, when I seen it was turning volatile, I should have walked away. Anger can quickly turn from an ally to an adversary when used in the wrong place at the wrong time. So yeah, I've learned a lot.
Once I found out I was being released 5F, or unfit for further service, it gave me a real blow to what I really had done, not only to my unit, but to myself and my career. At first it felt surreal. I didn't believe that it was actually happening. I thought that I was living a dream and that I wasn't really being released. Once I actually went through release section and I was filling out the paperwork, that's when it started to sink in, and I started sinking into a slight depression, I believe.
Frequently this can also lead to mental health issues, such as some depression. A lot of people who are involved with have a lot of problems could develop some depression, anxiety, and things like that. So that's not uncommon. It also impacts their job and career. That if they end up involved with the law, they have to report that to the chain of command, which in turn could cause some difficulty at the unit level. Also, being involved with the law or things like that could also lead to feeling of being hopeless or helpless, that they're ruining their lives, everything's falling apart. Could lead to the idea of suicide, thinking about suicide or suicide ideation, and you know, which of course goes along with depression and whatnot.
I almost committed suicide twice, and to take my life away. That's the scary part of this. This addiction, it's an emotional addiction where a person can hide it very well, and lo and behold, it could take their life.
As normal, you can show, you can preach, you can talk, but each person's going to do what they want to do, and most of them don't think, they react.
Think before you act. Soldiers jump into a situation without thinking about the ramifications.
You don't come forward and things start to fall apart. It could impact your family. It could have longer term implications. So I always encourage people to come forward and seek help before that happens, so that you don't lose your social support and you don't end up losing your job, because these are long-term outcomes that could result from making a bad choice.
Don't be afraid. Talk. Talking is the best therapy in this program. If you talk, people will listen. And if they don't want to listen, well, guess what? Do a journal. Write out in a journal. That's what I've been doing 5.5 years. And I didn't think I could do this. I didn't think it would happen to me.
Les décisions, les choix que vous allez prendre vont avoir des conséquences, bonnes ou mauvaises. Puis si vous êtes sur la mauvaise voie et que vous ne le réalisez pas à temps, vous allez vous ramasser sans emploi au sein des forces canadiennes, puis il va être trop tard pour revenir en arrière.
I never want to leave the Canadian Forces. I thought that I was going to have a longevity career, 20, 25 years minimum. To be released is still a hard pill to swallow. I would love to don the uniform again. And